Well, you have sound bites there from the Inferno in Kano. We have in the studio the Public Relations Officer of the Federal Fire Service, Abraham Paul, in the studio to talk to us about some of the things that the Federal Fire Service is doing to at least contain some of these incidences. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah. All right. Now, I mean, this time of the year usually seem like that time when we have these incidences of fire in different parts of the country. What's the Federal Fire Service doing to contain this trend?
Well, yeah, like you rightly noted, this time of the year, the Hamatans are here. So it's cold at night, it's hot during the day. And professionally, we understand the fire triangle. What's the fire triangle? It's a combination of three elements that triggers fire, which is oxygen, heat, and, oxygen, heat, and fuel. Okay, so right now there's a lot of wind, that's oxygen. There's too much sunlight, especially during the day, that's heat. And then you have a lot of dry environment, that's the fuel. So when these three come together, fire is inevitable. So that's the season that we're in. And it's important that all three doesn't come together. And where they come together, if you're able to put out one of the elements, then you have extinguished fire. Now, to the season that we are, the Controller General, its mantra when he came to office is that prevention of fire is cheaper, is safer, and is easier than firefighting. And so he has mandated all the states and zonal command across the country. Interestingly, Nigerians, it's worthy to note that the Federal Fire Service is in all the states of the Federation. And then we have 13 zonal commands that supervises 2 state commands as the case may be. So he's mandated all the zonal commands, all the state commands, to go out on continuous enlightenment campaigns in marketplaces, public buildings, in schools. We're now in partnership with virtually all the states' secondary education board. The essence is, again, to prevent fire. It's better it doesn't happen than for it to happen. Okay, so that's one of the things we're doing. So through traditional rulers, through market association, women leaders, religious institutions, we're carrying the message to them. What are the things we need to do to prevent fire, especially at this time? So that campaign is ongoing.
Okay, that mandate is there, but to what extent will you say it's been implemented? Because I haven't seen the fire service operatives doing any campaigns.
Well, you may not have seen them. Doesn't mean it's not been ongoing. It's been ongoing. I recall about maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, we did one that was in virtually all the frontline papers. And it was even in the front page. We're in Banex, we're in Computer Village here in Abuja. And every week in Abuja, for example, we have a platform where we monitor the school outreach programs. So you see them going to schools, talking to children, like the secondary school children, about fire. In the zonal command, we also have a zonal platform where they turn in their reports every week to say, okay, we were in this market, we met this traditional ruler, we went to this TV station, and all of that. So all of that is ongoing.
Now, you talk about the presence of the fire service across the country in all the states. But how about the efficiency, the effectiveness of the Federal Fire Service? We've heard stories such as there's no water in the trucks when we called them. They didn't come as at the time that they are needed. It's until hours after the inferno and things have been destroyed before they came and all that. So what has changed in the way your operations is being done to make sure that we don't hear such stories?
Okay, well, I think, again, we're in all the 36 states of the Federation. We have 13 zonal commands. We have even gone into some senatorial districts, okay? But again, if you juxtapose that with our land space, We have 774 local governments. The Federal Fire Service is not in all 774 local governments, and I dare not claim that. Nigerians must also know that the fire service is on the concurrent list of the Constitution. We're not on the exclusive list, like the police or the army and all of that. What that means is, as much as the federal government is providing fire cover, the state government has equal rights and opportunity to put that out. The local government share in the same responsibility. That's what it means for it to be on the concurrent list. Even the private individuals have, with capacity, can set up fire plants in their facilities, their businesses and public places. All you need to do is to approach us through the Service Registration Board, and when we inspect your facility and see that you have the capacity, we'll give you the approval to set up such plan. Now, having said that, globally, fire service is supposed to attend to this emergency in 5 minutes. Globally, that's the international standard. Are we there in Nigeria now? The answer is a no. It's still a work in progress. But the reason for not being there, just like the clip we watched from Kano, you heard the guy said it. They saw the fire, they went somewhere, and then they decided to call the fire service. So from the point where you call us to the point where we arrive, there may be little or nothing we can do. Fire has an incipient stage. That's when it starts. The moment you see smoke, okay, you must do one of these two things. Either you go out there and see, because it's still incipient, it's still starting. And that will lead me to another talk on first aid firefighting, but I'll keep that by the side. You either go and attack the base of the fire, and in this case, an electric fire. So you go and put it off from its source. That's why you have your cutouts and circuit breakers and all of that, okay? If you didn't do that, the next and most important thing you do as you're exiting is to begin to call the service, okay? So from the point where you call us to coming in, of course, we will be there.
All right, Mr. Paul,
yes.
Talking about you coming in. Yesterday, the incident was at Singa Market in Kano.
That's right.
And I'm sure you recall the incident at Katinkwari Market in Kano last year. Even when the fire service trucks came, they couldn't access the market. They couldn't go in because there was no passage. So my question is, when they are building structures like the markets, the fire service, do they have any input to say, okay, this is a market structure, it's going to house a lot of people, then there's a need for passage so that when there's an incident, we can come in?
Yeah, thank you very much, my sister. That's a very good question. Yes, the Federal Fire Service, we have input. But again, like I told you, we have the Federal Fire Service, we have the State Fire Service, we have the Local Government Fire Service. And we're all on the concurrent list. I'll give you an example in Ibadan. The men of the Federal Fire Service went to a local government where a very gigantic building was going to come up. And we wanted to inspect the facility to ensure that it was in line with international best practice in case of an emergency. The owners brought out a permit from the local government fire service. I said, we already have the permit. Leave our premises. You get what I'm saying? So in that case, the Federal Fire Service becomes constrained. So what do? We have a unit in the service, which is the building plans and examination. So ordinarily, if you're going to put out a building, especially the public space, because of the number of occupants and the hazard that may arise, and of course properties that may also be involved, you approach us, or if we notice that such a building is ongoing, we go there. But some very decent Nigerian, law-abiding Nigerians, they actually come to us. This is my plan. Could you look through it? And then we make inputs.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, where is the meeting point? This scenario you painted, where there would seem to be a clash between the Federal Fire Service and the local governments at all the different levels. Where is the meeting point, and who is supposed to coordinate that in times where there are clashes or conflicts, if you like? Who is supposed to superintend?
Okay. Again, the Constitution places us on equal power and equal rights. Okay? So what we do based on the 1963 Act is that we focus more where this conflict come, private buildings in a local government or public buildings in a state government, that is not a federal government installation. We back out. But of course, we have some kind of synergy between state commanders and the state directors of fire. And then they try to liaise to say that, okay, these things are properly done. But again, we are Nigerians.
There is no law binding that. There is no, it's merely based on, should I say, mutual understanding.
Yeah.
There is no law, I mean, binding anything.
Let's understand the Constitution. The Constitution is the grand norm of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended in 1999. And that law says that where any other law is in conflict with the Constitution takes precedence. The Constitution says that the Federal Fire Service and the State Fire Service and the local government fire service are on the concurrent list. They didn't give me more power than they gave you.
Was there a forum that brings all of you under one roof?
Yes, there's the Fire Council. Okay, there we have these deliberations, we have these discussions. Okay, I'm not saying it's not like a dagger-drawn situation. I'm only painting scenarios where you want to go, I mean, and you know that if a federal agency of government is to do an inspection, in my view, it may be more thorough than the local government, right? But the fact that they already have a local government permit, you're constrained. If you understand what I'm saying. Especially when the premises is in a local government. That's the point.
Okay. So some of these inefficiencies that we see, how can we deal with them? So no water, because it really baffles me sometimes. The issue of no water, when I hear such
let's
stories.
resolve it. Let's resolve it. Yeah. The issue of no water has nothing to do with the Federal Fire Service. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
So all those instances that
if these same questions came out before the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, right, or before the tail end of, the tail end of President Jonathan's administration and the beginning of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration, I mean, I will want to listen to it. I want to tell you, my brother, before President Muhammadu Buhari came in 2015, we had 3 stations in the Federal Republic of Nigeria: Kanu, Lagos, and Abuja, with barely 3 moribund appliances. Okay, but today we have well over 100 state-of-the-art appliances. If you see them, they are almost like a car you can ride in. Beautiful, and they are carrying tons of water, 10,000 tons of water. Now, when they say there's no water, we don't fight fire with water. We fight fire with extinguishing elements. A lot of them are foam compounds. And that's why when we go fight fire, people now put Omo in water and try to get the foam compound out of it. Those are very scientific extinguishing elements that we use. So for now, those stories don't apply to us. But again, people have not been able to distinguish between the Federal Fire Service and the state fire services.
But to what extent is the fire service using technology to fight fire incidents? And are your personnel trained in that regard?
Well, to what extent? I will tell you, it's not a walk in the park. We're not there yet, but we're not where we used to be. Now, when you talk about technology, let us bring it down home. We have the digital migrants and the digital natives. The digital natives are those who open their eyes from their mother's womb and have access to every gadget that me and you are talking about. So your kid take up your phone, he discovers more function than you do. We are digital migrants. Some of us went through university and didn't have the opportunity. And where we did, it was even a computer that was not connected to the internet. Those are digital migrants, okay? Now, in our day, technology has become a very, very significant part of firefighting, okay? And how are we doing that at the Federal Fire Service? Today, we have 13 data repository fire alarm centers across the country. So, what does that mean? The data fire alarm repository center is able to, these guys now, before now, there was a fire in this market. What was the cost of that fire? Somebody says, oh, we saw electric spark. Somebody says, oh, we saw smoke. You're not able to tell. But the fire alarm center and the repository center, what is their responsibility? From the comfort of that station, that center, okay, they are able to zoom in to a location where there's fire and tell the actual cause of fire and able to direct our men to say, okay, the base of this fire, because firefighting is not about fighting flames. It's about fighting the source, where the fire emanates from. If you go fighting smokes and flames, the fire is not going to go out. Okay, that's one. The other thing is, because it's a repository center, it also helps us, it gives us data. So today we're able to tell you, oh, we had this number of fire incidents, we have this number of casualties, we have this number of property, lost, and then property recovered, and all of that. But beyond the data repository center, we're also, the Controller General, some 2 months ago, was in America, and he was with the California Guards, the National Guards. These guys have gone some steps ahead of us. They have beautiful experience using aircraft and using various kinds of technology to fight fire. And we're discussing some level of partnership with them. The essence is, when the current CG came on board, he inherited a conversation, okay, that was going on between the Federal Fire Service and the Nigerian Air Force on aerial firefighting, okay? Because these days we're beginning to get more high-rise buildings, okay? So he inherited that conversation, and it's still ongoing. But the Air Force don't have experience in firefighting. They have the technology, they have the infrastructure, okay? But the California National Guards have not just the technology and the infrastructure, they have the experience. Because, I mean, their society is more, for lack of a better word, it's more built up, So that relationship is going. And we hope that in the coming month we'll be able to, build on it.
All right, now let's talk about toll-free lines, contact lines. How do people report issues? Do you have numbers? And sometimes you hear stories. Again, I say stories because we talk from people's experiences. They say, well, I've tried to call the line, it's not going through, and all that. So how do we make sure that we have channels of communication in such a way that people can reach the fire service, the moment there's
a national emergency line, and I must state that a lot of times, again, communication gap. You call the number, and they say, hold on. If it's fire, press 2. If it's road accident, press 1. A lot of our people are not literate enough to wait on that process. That's one. Number 2, sometimes you get a dead end in that call. It happens, and I'm not here to deny that. That is on the national emergency number. But at the Federal Fire Service, we had to create an alternative because we can't keep waiting on that process. So we have what we call the National Response Line, which comes directly to the headquarters. And from the headquarters, we're able to turn out our men from anywhere across the country that is closest to the fire scene. Again, fire stations, proximity to fire scenes, it's a great help. Okay, where we get those calls, if it's the Federal Fire Service station that is the closest, we turn it out. If it's the State Fire Service that is the closest, we turn it out. If it's a private fire station that is the closest, remember I mentioned earlier that even private individuals with capacity can have a mini fire station in their premises. So if Trust TV or Daily Trust, for example, approaches us for a fire station, and you should have one here. What that means is that if the timber or market just across the road is on fire, we'll call you because we have all your details in our system. We'll call you to turn out, at least start first aid firefighting before our man comes in. Okay. So we have that number of our situation room.
So that's to say, that's just a follow-up. So that's to say that you have a comprehensive data on all the fire stations in the country.
Yes.
From top to bottom,
from top
federal to local government, and including all the private.
Yes.
So for private people who want to set up, what do they need to do?
What do they need to do? First and foremost, we have a board in the service which is called the Service Registration Board. You do an application letter to the Controller General requesting to be licensed to have a private fire station in your premises, okay? And then we send you a requirement. Requirement will be maybe land space, a little infrastructure you will need, and then we come and, so when you reply to say you have the land space, because this machine has to be stationed somewhere, you have the land space and all of that, we come and inspect. We send our inspectors. They're under the investigation, inspection, and enforcement unit. They come and inspect. They write a report to say, oh, okay, Daily Trust, they've got a space where we can use for the fire station. Remember, it can't be at the back because of turnout. You know, it's always better to be where you can have access. Okay, we do all of that, and then we give an approval in principle, and then you start, you know, putting up the building. Let Nigerians know that if you do that and you scale through the process and get the approval, which process, from what I've said, is very seamless. You're helping us, okay? We are ready to deploy our men. The Federal Fire Service will deploy her men to come and man the station, assuming you can provide the infrastructure, but don't have the capacity to provide the men. If you say, oh no, I've got some men, maybe from the security units, we can train them.
Is this open for people who want to set up for commercial purposes?
Commercial purposes, I don't think so. Why? Because for now, our enabling law, except amended, although that's work in progress, it's a corporate social responsibility. Remember, we're not a revenue generating arm of government. Federal Fire Service is one of that arm of government that provides service to people for purpose of feeling that government is actually interested in how we feel. Yeah, so I wouldn't be able to talk more on the commercial aspects.
All right, I want to bring you back to the distinction you were making earlier between the Federal Fire Service and state and then local government. So for instance, if somebody has an incident at his home, how does he know which one he's supposed to go to? Is it the state, is it the local government, or the federal?
Well, when it comes to, thank you, my sister, very interestingly, when it comes to issuing of permits and certificates of compliance and all of that, maybe because of the token that is attached to it, then people say, no, this is local government, and we have given them the permits. When there's fire, there's no federal fire, there's no state fire, there's no local government fire. Fire is fire. I mean, fire incident. Once it happens, I just gave you our control room number. If we get that number, we're going to call you any fire station that is closest.
Perhaps that's why maybe many people don't bother to want to know whether it is federal or state.
You understand? Because nobody's going to say, oh, this is a village fire. Fire is fire.
But you said that you have the same powers, the federal and then the state, and that you cannot tell the state to do something.
They understand.
So how does that work?
No, they understand when there's an emergency, we need to go and fight fire.
Okay, at that point,
it's entirely different
together.
from this premises has been certified. Go and pay TSA of 5,000 to federal government. States feel that you have come to take their revenue. Do you get that now? But when there's fire, and I mean, we are Nigerians, let's not pretend. If you travel across the country, how many state fire services are actually functional?
Okay.
Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah, how many? I'm from Kogi, and I dare to say that they don't have a functional state fire service. We were there in Lokoja, and every time our men turn out, we get a mob attack. We wanted the government of Kogi State to commit to the protection of our men, but they wouldn't. So we had to deploy them from Lokoja to Ajakuta, where you have the Ajakuta Steel Company, federal government infrastructure. So even if we can't do anything in Kogi, let us protect this one that belongs to the federal government. So if a fire incident should happen in Lokoja and you put a call across to us, I mean, it will take them more than an hour to leave Ajakuta and come into Lokoja. Not to talk of going to Dekina or Ibaji or some other dead-end local government. There was fire incident in Ankpa a few weeks ago. There's no fire station. There's no functional fire station. You get what I'm saying? So, but when fire occurs, there's no state fire or local government fire or federal fire service. We just turn out. If we are closest to the place, we turn out. If it's a private fire station that is closest to the place, we turn them out.
But in that kind of scenario where a state does not have, and you have to now deploy from the federal, maybe Abuja, for instance, before you get there, the damage would have been done,
my dear
right?
sister, it's like saying that there's a fire now in Lokoja, and you want us to leave Abuja. When are we going to get there? And that's why I said, we're not where we ought to be, but we're not where we used to be. Before 2015, we had 3, Lagos, Port Harcourt, Abuja. Today, we're in all the states of the Federation, including the FCT.
All right, now the whole world is dealing with the issue of climate change. In some parts of the world, in America, for instance, we've seen wildfires, ravaging cities. So, in the eventuality that we are experiencing that, how prepared are we to deal with that magnitude of fire outbreak?
Well, my brother, Nigeria is part of the global community. And so climate change, as much as we're not contributing a lot to the cause of the climate change situation, where African countries, and maybe West Africa, will bear the brunt more than even the West, where they contribute more to what causes the climate change. But wildfire, for example, one of the campaigns that we've been building, and if you follow our conversation, I've been talking more of prevention than fighting, because I know there are enormous resources, both material and men, that will go into firefighting, okay? So, if you put that in view, what we try to do a lot for now is to talk prevention. So, across the country, especially in the north, where you have a lot of dry, open airspace and all of that, we're talking to them about bush burning, uncontrolled bush burning, because that's where it starts from, especially in this part of the globe. That's where it starts from. Those of our brothers and sisters who go hunting game by setting places on fire, we're telling them it's not necessary. How many rats or elephants are you going to kill from setting the whole place on fire? And you're not, you get what I'm saying? So we're doing all of that. And then if you, again, take back our conversation, we're talking about area firefighting. The essence is so that if things like this happens, okay, we can, again, turn out, because we can fight fire aerially from, moving with aircraft, carrying tons of water and chemicals to go fight fire. In the immediate, we don't have certain infrastructure, but we hope that in the coming days, the trends are changing, and we're there to remain where we used to be. So we are also thinking, of the process. And the Controller General is very passionate about that, because he's putting a lot of thinking caps together to say, what do? We need to be proactive. We need to be prepared.
I'm sure a lot of resources goes into firefighting, right? So to what extent, or what is the fire service doing to bring in the private sector to support?
Yeah. What are we doing to bring in the private sectors to support? If I were to reel out some of the agenda of the Controller General, by the way, Engineer Abdugani Ujaji, the Controller General of Federal Fire Service, he is conscious, and he stated it very clearly, and he has said it repeatedly. The private sector has an enormous responsibility and resources that we need to deploy into firefighting. One of the ways that he's done that so far is he has made the process of private fire stations coming on board very light. So today, within 6 months of coming into office, we have 3 fire stations, private fire stations, issued license and started operation. Diff Medical, here in Gudu, is one of them. That's a hospital. They don't have any business firefighting, but they approached us, he gave them license. Today they have a fire station, and our men are mounting it. We have one in somewhere in Anambra State, another one, in Edo, a senator. You get what I'm saying? So he's encouraging that. But beyond that, we're also saying, okay, we're writing to them. Look, this responsibility is so enormous We can't leave it to the federal government alone. What area of your corporate social responsibility can you extend to us? Operational vehicles, foam compounds. Amazingly, because we are not a revenue generation, you go out fighting fire, you may have expended a lot of resources. You come back and you just refill. The people are already crying that their fire got to their place. So the best they can tell you is thank you.
Okay. All right. Now, let's talk about other mandates of the Federal Fire Service. Aside from firefighting, are there other things that Nigerians need to know? It's within your purview?
Humanitarian services. Okay, we have humanitarian services. Of course, we also have, while we prevent, mitigate, and fight fire, okay, we also have, I told you about the Service Registration Board, where we can license, and all of that.
Okay. Well, I think we've
the Yuletide is around the corner.
Yeah.
People are going to be doing a lot of celebrations. What message do you have for Nigerians?
Well, I will say, firstly, let me tell Nigerians that the Federal Fire Service or the fire service in Nigeria require your support. We are not the cause of the fire. We're only out there to prevent fire, as much as we can, and extinguish where necessary. The festivities are approaching, and it's in the heat of the Harmattan. Fireworks. We want to really, really discourage Nigerians. And we call on the parents, to step up their games. We want to really, really discourage it, the fireworks, because the area is dry, there's a lot of wind, so you can't tell where this will go. Uncontrolled bush burning. We want to discourage Nigerians. It's not going to add to us. It may take away from us, especially now that we don't have all the infrastructure to fight wildfire, like we have all, come to understand and appreciate. Again, unattended cooking. This is not a time to put food on fire and walk away. If your appliances are not in use, please pull them out. And then most importantly, every home, when I came into your office, I looked around. I was looking for your fire alarm. I was looking for your smoke detectors. I was looking for your extinguishers. Every home.
I hope you found all of that.
I did. If I didn't, I was going to say here, because I'm an enforcement officer. And anything can happen while I'm here, So every home is required to acquire these first aid firefighting gadgets. They're actually cheaper than firefighting itself.
All right. So what are the numbers to call in case of emergencies?
In case of emergency, please call the control room number of the Federal Fire Service. And it's 080-3200-3557.
Okay, I hope our viewers are listening. You can take that again. In case
we can even call it. If you have your phone here as I'm calling, you can call that number. Okay. And I'm sure you'll be shocked with the response.
Okay.
It's 080-3200-3557.
All right, so there you have it. That's our show for today. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak and giving us this insight, really quite insightful and interesting. We look forward to engaging with you subsequently.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. Our guest is the Public Relations Officer of the Federal Fire Service. He's Abraham Paul with us here in the studio. And that's our show for today. In case you have missed, you can always catch up across all our social media platforms and also subscribe to our YouTube channel where we stream live 247. My name is Ayuba Ilya. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Daybreak continues same time, same station tomorrow. My name is Stella Yaji, and do have a very pleasant day.